And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about budget teams that slap, specifically GAC offensive teams. Just to give you guys a point of reference, I am a 7.6 million GP account, so pretty mid-game. These teams could apply very easily for cleanups, even possibly punch up pretty significantly if you're in the high end of the game. And they could definitely be teams for you to look forward to using in the near future if you are on the lower end of the game. Before we get into the specifics, just a quick reminder, make sure you guys give me a like and subscribe if you guys like what you see today. And then, of course, if you are already doing those things, make sure you turn on notifications so you guys don't miss any other videos in the future. All right, let's go ahead and get on into it. Team number one that we have here, so we're going to be going over 5 teams, and then we've got a couple of honorable mentions as well at the very end that we'll talk about. Team number one is the Bounty Hunter team here, led by Aura Singh. I absolutely love this team. I refer to them as my surgical blade of all of my teams because they can go in and they can just surgically remove different opponents that are key to the opponent's team. And as soon as you get rid of that one important member, bam, they can easily take down top tier teams. These guys really are very, very dependent on speed and in particular turn meter gain, as well as one crucial Omicron, which we'll get into here in just a second. First of all, Aura Singh's lead is really important in this team. A lot of people will use Boba, or Bosk, I should say, as a lead for, you know, PvE stuff, simply because of the regenerative properties of his kit. But in terms of PvP, Aura's lead here is crucial because the contract is just so easy to get. It says use an ability while buffed 10 times. Only bounty hunter allies can contribute to the contract. The reason this works so well is because if you get your turn meter clocked correctly, you're going to have your contract activated within 2 turns. It's really impressive. I should say 3. We're just not going to count the first turn because it's not really important. Let's go ahead and look at why this works so well. So that's her contract. The key thing to the team is, one, you need Bosk to be first. So he has to be speeded to be the #1 character in terms of turn order. So you can see with my team specifically here, I've got some pretty decent mods on him. And I've got his speed up at a pretty high level. It's not insane. It's not elite, but it's decent. At 306, he definitely moves relatively well. Now, the key thing here is going to be Zam Wessel's Omicron. She really pumps him up through the roof. This 306 suddenly turns into 366 with her Omicron, which we're going to talk about here in a second. The key thing with turn order, though, is after Boss goes, you immediately need Grief to go. So Grief, ideally, if my Boss is 306, Grief is 305. He's only going to be 1 speed slower than Bosk. You can see I have him at 303. It's pretty darn close. I actually did run into a situation the other day taking on a 501st team that was under Shock T lead, and they actually were able to go right in between them, even with only a 3-point speed difference, and it really did kind of mess things up. We ended up getting the win, but it really is very important to get this as close as possible to Bosk's speed, just 1 point behind. Zam's Omicron, though, this is the big thing with her. When you activate this Omicron, basically, if you get her at a pretty decent amount of speed, they're going to pick up a portion of that. So, for instance, I have her at 296. Most people should probably be shooting to get her around 300 speed. If you do that, then you're going to get 60 speed. It's 20% of what her speed is, added on to everyone else on your team. So that effectively, like I said, gets Bosk up to a 366. And then he takes his turn, he taunts, Grief calls everyone into assist. They're all buffed because of Aura Singh's lead. Then, because Bosk has Frenzy, he immediately will gain another turn. And then he uses his mass assist ability. At this point, they have now attacked 10 times while buffed, and they have their contract. At this point, the turn order is not super important. Currently, because I want Zam to be pretty fast, Zam goes 3rd. And then, I forget whether I have Aura or Mando going 4th in the order here. It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. I think it's Aura, just simply because you do want to keep Mando pretty low. The reason for that is because Mando will gain turn meter every time he crits. Yeah, you can see he's the slowest on my team. So you don't want him to be super fast. If he's up at like 280, you could run into some problems. Because as he gains that turn meter, he's going to end up going ahead of where you want him to and go before Grief, and then your whole team is messed up. But anyway, the point of this is that when you get that turn meter all clocked in correctly, the Mando gets his ultimate from, I'll kind of call it his ultimate, his one-shot wonder, and he can take out anybody with that one shot. It is so good. I love using this team for my Darth Revan counter. Whenever I see Darth Revan, it can beat a lot of other teams as well, but that's probably one of the best punch-ups that I get with that. Moving on to our second team here, the Bad Batch. So I know that these are a little bit of a tricky team to get a hold of. They're a little bit more late game, but the nice thing about it is you really don't need all of them to be at relic levels. I want to mention out that some of these teams are going to have relic characters. Part of that is because of requirements. Bosk was a requirement. Zam is going to be a requirement eventually. Grief, I took up mostly so he would get speed. So he doesn't technically have to be at relic level if you can get him a high enough speed. Same thing is true with Bosk. Same thing is true with Zam. I just want those three, you need speed. So they're relic primarily for the speed, but the other two, Gear 12 is fine. With this team, Echo is the only one that you really, really, really need speed on. With my Echo, I've got him at a pretty good clip here. He doesn't have my best speed mods on my roster, but it's enough. 341 gets him to be pretty fast. Ideally, I'd get him up closer to like 350, 360, but it still works pretty well. The idea is that most of the teams he's facing is he gets out ahead of them, he dazes them, and if he removes any buffs, Tech gains, along with the whole rest of the team, a ton of turn meter. And then Tech goes, and he will use his special to then stun the entire team. You also then flip turn meter with Hunter's special with Wrecker, and then Wrecker can also stun everybody. This is a tremendous counter against the Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron teams. Also works really well against a really high relic Grievous team. It really is just very good at controlling the field. It also works pretty well against Iden teams as well, if you see them on defense. So great team, very minimal investment. You can see my Omega's only Gear 9, and I do take her in, simply because this team, if they get out ahead, they're going to control the entire battle. And so Omega rarely gets killed, even only at Gear 9. The only exception to that really is with Grievous. Sometimes I will lose her against Grievous, depending how strong their Grievous is. But against Grievous, I probably could just take in the 4 of them and we'd be fine. So another tremendous, tremendous team here that really doesn't require a ton of investment, but can really punch up. Third team on our list here, we have the Troopers, the Imperial Trooper team. And this is what I would consider to be the ideal lineup. Again, some of these guys are reliced up because of requirements. C was a requirement for quite a few of these guys. The one that I would say definitively, and Admiral Piet obviously for Executor is brought up that high for that as well. The big one in this team that you need at relic level, though, is Dark Trooper. Theoretically, the other 3 you could have it at Gear 12 and you'd be fine. With one caveat, which I'll get to in a second here. Dark Trooper you want high, super high. The higher he is, the harder he hits, and the more important that is in the whole process. Mine is Relic 5. It works. Ideally, he'd be Relic 7. I have run into a couple occasions trying to use these guys against Revan counters, Darth Revan counters, where he doesn't quite hit as hard as I would like him to. And we've lost a couple of battles because of it. Or more accurately, I should say, we don't get the banners that I would prefer. But we usually do win just because Piet kind of carries us because of how strong he is. But ideally, he would be stronger and we would get some of those wins much cleaner. Now, Piet is kind of the exception to the rule here because Piet, you do want to be very fast. The faster he is, the better this team is. The key is they got to get out in front, and then they just turn meter train teams to death. So with my Piet, you'll see with him, he is modded for some pretty serious speed. I've got him at 342. Again, not elite. We're not talking, 10 million GP accounts and higher speed. I'm a lowly 7.6 here, folks. This is pretty good though. He will beat most every team that's out there because he's getting 20 speed from the lead from Veers. So you're actually looking at a real speed of 362. So he is significantly faster than a lot of teams you're going to face. And then, like I said, the turn meter train just kind of takes care of itself. As long as Dark Trooper is strong enough and hits hard enough, you'll get that kill. Game over. Now, the next team I have here, again, this is another team that's going to look like it requires a lot of investment, similar to the Troopers here, but they're only as high as they are because of requirements. Grievous was a requirement. B1's requirement for gas. Magna Guard's requirement for JMK. Pardon me. I got a little bit of cold. The fact of the matter is, though, with this team, Grievous is really the only one you need at a relic level. The other ones are all fine at gear 12. B1, yeah, we could definitely do with him being in the relics. The team will hit a lot harder that way. But really, as long as your Grievous is at a relic 7, the whole rest of this team is bonkers good. Excuse me. The reason I love these guys on offense, a lot of teams will, or a lot of guilds will probably use these on defense, but they're so good and so versatile at taking out Galactic Legends on offense. Now, if you really want them to hit up to Galactic Legend level, you might want to invest some relic levels into them, especially Magna Guard, because the more he can tank, the better your team's going to do. Newt, you can see my Newt's only a gear 12. He's fine. He'll revive if he dies right away. It's not the end of the world. But even if the rest of that team is lower and at gear 12, you're going to be fine. You can still take out a lot of mid-tier teams without any problems, and potentially take out top-tier teams with this team as well. I always save them because they are my JML counter if I need it, and they can also beat C if need be as well. Moving on to our next team. The Iden Versio team. I love this team. I actually use them on defense personally, but they can kind of go both ways. Really, all of these teams can, except for, I would say, Troopers, Bad Batch, and the Aura Bounty Hunters. Those are really exclusively for offense. But Grievous you can put on defense. Iden you can put on defense as well. I don't recommend it for Grievous. He's just got too many other ways to be used. He's got way too much versatility. Iden I put on defense right now just because they're not as strong as I would like them to, especially Iden. I'd love to get her up into a relic level, but still working on it. You can see I'm pretty close. 69. But this team hits up so hard for what they are. Their ability in GAC in particular just to constantly gain protection and health back, to revive. They are so good. They will take out a lot of teams. They can take out CLS teams if they are, you know, at a similar level in terms of relics and or gear. It's just an incredible team. Can't recommend them enough, folks. Invest in these guys immediately. The key thing here, obviously, is that you need troopers that do not have a leadership for this team. This is what I currently have loaded out. You could also sub in Stark. I actually, for my GAC, I do have Stark in here, just because my Stark is a Relic 3, so he's a little bit stronger. I take out Magma and put Stark in there instead. But this works as well. Really, any kind of combination of these troopers that don't have a leadership. You could also put Shore in if you wanted to instead of Stormtrooper, or you could put him in instead of Magma, and then you'd have a really tanky team if you want to for like defense in particular. For offense, though, you can kind of go both ways. I think offensively, probably Stark is better than Magma Trooper, just because he can remove and he can daze. But again, there's just a lot of versatility with this team. Great, great, great team on offense. All right, that brings us to our kind of honorable mentions. These teams, they're not really a full team, but man, do they hit hard. And that is Wampa with an Omega and Savage with an Omega. Savage, a lot of people are using him on defense at this point with another Sith team to make it a really tough Sith team. That certainly works. But he also can solo a lot on offense. Really, really strong character at this point. You can see I have him at gear 12. I will be taking him into Relic here at some point. There's just so many things for me to take up at this point. Again, I'm a mid-level player. What do you want? But Wampa, man, with this Omega that he has, he is offense only. You do not put him on defense. Put him on offense and just watch him tear teams apart. Just so much fun. All right, folks. That'll pretty much wrap us up for today. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you guys like what you saw here. If you have any other teams that you think would work really well on offense that are, you know, kind of budget teams that slap, so to speak. Last but not least, You guys can check me out over on Twitch if you would like to join live streams of our GAC and live conversations that we have during that time. You can check out that link below. Also, I will have some cards here for you guys to check out at the end, and you can check out any of the other videos that we posted for Swogga videos as well. All right, folks, have a good rest of your day. Check you next time.